All right guys, we're jumping back on the 335i F30 project. This 335i was originally purchased from a salvage auction with a pretty bad front end collision. I saw it listed locally as an incomplete project that was supposedly repaired at a body shop, but when I went and looked at it, I discovered that there was some hidden frame damage that the shop was trying to cover up. None of the panels were lining up properly, so this is why the seller was trying to sell the car. So I still wanted to buy the project, so I negotiated all of that into the price and took the car back to my shop to repair it the right way. I started the process by removing the engine and tranny, which really revealed the extent of the damage. So I hooked it up to the frame machine, pulled on it a little, and then started ripping out all of the damaged panels. Replaced them with good metal. Welded everything in, primed, seam sealed, and painted it all, and got this engine bay back to factory specs. I then did a final test fit of all the body panels and everything checked out, so now it's time to start putting this car back together again. So let's get into it on Rebuild Revival. So here's the engine and tranny out of this car, and I think when it got into the accident, it popped an oil line or something like that, because there's oil all over the front of this thing. Also, the oil filter housing gasket is probably leaking, and possibly the valve cover gasket. Those are two gaskets that I'm gonna do, but I wanna clean this first. There's also a ton of oil all over the subframe. We aren't gonna be using this subframe. This is the replacement one that we have, but all of the stuff off of the subframe we will be using, all of the suspension, the steering rack, all of that. So I do want to clean this as well. And I'm going to clean here in the engine bay. Obviously, all of the stuff that we prepped and painted is nice and fresh, but all of this up here by the cowl and firewall is pretty dirty, as well as some of these other parts like the underbody covers, some over here, some heat shields over here. The cooling assembly is pretty dirty. So I'm going to clean a bunch of this stuff right now. All right guys, I'm just starting to get prepped over here. You see the containment down. I put a tarp up. A bunch of my parts are laid out. And I saw something I didn't see before. So this is the electric water pump. And it looks like something hit the water pump. It actually broke the bracket that it mounts to. That's why it's so loose like that. So there's the cracked mount right there. And the worst part is the water pump came in contact with this connector right there. This is on the turbo, so it probably has something to do with the wastegate. I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, just ran into that. And here are some of the things we're gonna be using. This is just some regular Purple Power, regular degreaser that I've got here. We've got Gunk engine degreaser, original. I would like to use heavy duty, but they didn't have any where I went, so I just got the original. Some brake parts cleaner here, and then carb choke parts cleaner here for some of the more sensitive stuff. I've talked about this containment a little bit. I've used it quite a bit, and it is a really nice containment. The material is really, really thick, and it does have this nice ledge around the side that holds a ton of water. And then you can just use like a shop vac or something like that to suck up all the water. I'll kind of show you that at the end. And here's the brand of this one in particular. I'll put a link in the description below. All right guys, I'm gonna start over here in the engine bay. All right, I'm about to start cleaning up the containment, and when you buy this one, the one that I have, it comes with this squeegee, so you can kind of like push the water around and stuff like that. So I'm gonna put my shop vac here, which I've got the wet dry or wet filter in here. And I'm just gonna turn it on and try and push all the water to here. Check that out. That filled up quick. So I gotta check it more often so I don't ruin the motor in this thing. Hopefully I didn't already, but let's go dump this. Woo, that's full. All right, so we're at probably about 25 gallons so far. All right, that is pretty much all cleaned up. Nice and dry and clean. So it's not too bad of a process. I mean, I don't really have another choice. I don't have anywhere I can do this stuff outside. I don't have a drain here in the shop. And also my floor is super unlevel, so all the water would probably pool up right over there. And I'm not sponsored by them or anything, but I do think they make a good product. This company in particular, it's really strong. I haven't had to make any repairs, which if you do, it does come with a couple of these patches. I haven't had to use one, like I said, and I've used this thing, I mean, you guys have seen probably 10 times already. I'm rolling engines off of it, putting engine parts on it. So this thing is really sturdy. All right, guys, I'm all done. As you can see, everything is all cleaned up. So let's go through and show you some before and afters. All right, I think the next thing that I'm gonna do is start preparing to get the engine onto the new subframe, not this one, that one. I wanna do a couple of gaskets on the engine while it's out, so it's really easy. Some of them were leaking, like the oil filter housing gasket was leaking. There's two, so we'll do both of those. And to get the oil filter housing off, you need to remove the intake manifold because there is one bolt and you cannot get to it without removing the intake manifold. So we'll do the intake manifold gaskets as well. We'll do the valve cover gasket because that was leaking as well around here in the back. That's what all of this like burnt oil is on the cat. So we'll do the valve cover gasket. And it seemed like the oil pan gasket might have been leaking as well. So we're gonna do the oil pan gasket as well. After getting all the gaskets done, we're going to start swapping over all the parts off of this subframe onto our replacement. So we'll get the engine and tranny onto the replacement subframe, and then we'll need to come over here to the engine bay and start running the harnesses where they need to go. There are some covers that we need to put on before we can get the engine mounted up in here. I'll probably remove this just for easier access. It's only a few bolts, so we'll pull this off, get everything run where it needs to go and prepped over here in the engine bay, and then we'll just drop the car down onto the engine and tranny subframe. So that's how we're gonna do that. All right, guys, so it's the next day, and as you can see, I've got a couple of helpers here today. This is my friend John Paul and his son Ledger. They're actually gonna be buying the car. This is gonna be a car for Ledger, and they wanted to be a part of the process of rebuilding it. So they're gonna help today with replacing some of the gaskets. And like I mentioned, we're gonna be doing the oil pan. We've got the valve cover gasket right here, intake manifold gaskets here, and the oil filter housing gaskets there. So we're gonna start by removing a lot of this stuff off the top of the engine here. We've got the fuel lines that need to be removed, a lot of these harnesses, a couple of vacuum lines and stuff like that to gain access to the valve cover underneath. So we'll start by removing all of this, and then also that'll give us better access to the intake manifold as well. go. All right, now we're gonna pull the oil filter housing apart and just a couple of bolts. There it is. All right guys, just a quick update. So my friends did leave, so it's just me back on this. We did get the intake manifold, the valve cover, and the oil filter housing removed. All of the surfaces have been cleaned for the gaskets. The valve cover was cracked, and you can see that light coming through right there. So it's got a crack right in this area. So this needs to be replaced. Oil filter housing, I think I mentioned that. So we've already got that removed. We've got the two halves separated here. So we're just gonna clean all of this up. We'll replace the gaskets, put it back together, and then put the new gasket on the head as well. We've got one gasket on this surface here, which is that one, and then the one that meets the head, which is this one. So we'll just remove both gaskets. Oh! How many times have you stabbed yourself with these? Me? It's a lot. There we go. All right, now we'll just clean it up with some carbon choke cleaner. That's looking really good. So is this one. So now we can put these two halves back together. Let's get the gasket. And these gaskets are going to go in dry. Let's put this back on. All right guys, and the torque spec on these are 16 Newton meters. I'm just gonna do it by hand. Just go around and ease them all in. I don't know if I mentioned this, but all these gaskets go in dry. All right, now we can mount the oil filter housing back up. Goes just like this. So we've got two from the top here, and then one from the front here. And the torque spec on these bolts are 22 Newton meters. Okay, we're good there. Now we're gonna prepare to put the intake manifold back on. So as you can see here, the ECU or DME is bolted to the intake manifold. I believe air going through the intake manifold actually cools the ECU or DME. So we've got a gasket for that we're going to replace. And then we will remove the gaskets from here, clean the surface, and replace them with our new gaskets. So we'll start by removing the DME. Pop out the old gasket, which if this gasket goes bad, you can have a vacuum leak. Just do a little cleaning here. Pop our new gasket into place here. Now we'll just clean the surface of the ECU where the gasket meets. Pop this back on there. Now we can replace all of these. Okay. I'll just pop these in. All right, now this is ready to go back in. I'm gonna show you the intake valves on this thing too. See those, these, Not too bad, not too bad. And then this back one here, the PCV is built into the valve cover and the head. You can see those ports right there. So this back port must have had more oil coming through it. So this is pretty much the only really dirty valve. These ones, they may look a little dirty, but there's not a lot of buildup on it. So those aren't really affecting the flow, but we're gonna try and clean these, and I'll see if I can stick my camera in after and see this last one so we can see how much of an improvement we made. Let's not leave that in there. So this harness clips into the intake manifold. There we go. All right. Went ahead and put a little Loctite on these as well. I like Loctite. I don't want my stuff coming loose. All right, and the torque spec on these is 15 Newton meters, but you should start in the center and kind of go in a circulating, alternating pattern outward. Circulating, alternating. I think that's a technical term. All right. Now I'm just gonna hook up some of the ECU harnesses that are still here on the engine. So now I'm gonna jump over into preparing the subframe. So this is the old one that is damaged. The replacement subframe came with these engine mounts, but I think these ones that I have are a little bit tighter. So we're gonna pull these engine mounts off, put these ones on, and I think I need to use the sway bar off of the original. Hopefully it's not bent because it does look a little different. This one's got this little notch taken out here and that one doesn't. So I think what I'm gonna do is unbolt the lower control arms. It's just one here, same on this side, and then unbolt the steering rack and pick the subframe off of the suspension and steering. We'll see if that works. Voila. All right, now we're just gonna strip all the rest of the stuff we need off of this one, which is pretty much everything. The replacement one that I have does not have these weights. There's another weight underneath this, so we'll need to pull those off as well. Gonna show you one last time how bad this subframe was damaged. Look at that. All cracked right in here. Yep, this one is toast. Went. Put the weight in. Oh no. All right, the replacement subframe does not have this nut, which is for one of these little weights. The 335 M Sport probably has a couple of added options that help it handle better or ride better, something like that. And this is just from a 328 base model, so it doesn't have those. So I'm just gonna cut these off and we'll, take some measurements, make sure we get it in the right spot, and then we'll weld it into this replacement subframe. Once we get this thing in the car, I'll go back through, loosen all of the bushings, put the weight on the suspension so it's at ride height, and then we'll tighten everything back down, because you want to tighten all these bushings at ride height. But that's it. All right, I've got all the parts swapped over to the replacement subframe over there, so that is ready to go. And I was going to do the valve cover next, but it didn't come in yet, so I'll pick that up tomorrow. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm going to be picking the engine up with the hoist, removing it from my little wood frame cart that I built, and then doing the oil pan gasket from underneath. And then once I get that done, I'll set the engine and tranny down onto the subframe, and then I'll do the valve cover when it comes in, which should be tomorrow. Move that guy. There we go. All right, so we're gonna drain the oil. I have no idea how much oil is in here. Not a lot. We'll leave a couple of them on just to catch the pan. Gently pry it off. Looks beautiful. Now you can't see much with the windage tray. Nothing weird to note. You can see that rod cap right there. Here's the oil pan. Nothing weird in here at all. There's probably a magnet somewhere. A little bit of carbon. No metal. Definitely needed an oil change. I would say that that is pretty clean. Good enough. Now let's go prep the engine. Now we'll go on with the new gasket, and this is an OEM BMW, and this will go on dry. All right guys, now we're going to torque all of these down. So the short ones, which are like these ones here, are 8 Newton meters plus 90 degrees. The longer ones here are 8 Newton meters plus 180 degrees. So now we'll do 90 degrees on the short ones, starting at the center, working our way out, and then 180 on the long ones. Oh, this one is done. First 180, so we're gonna do 2 90s. 1, 2. All right, I think we're ready to mount this to the subframe, so I'm just gonna prepare for that. And there it is. I've got it going super slow, but there the bolt comes through the engine mount bracket. There it is. And the other side is actually already in as well, right there. I've still got a little more work to do on the drivetrain before we can put it in the car. I've got a couple of boots that I'm gonna replace here on the struts. Still need to do the valve cover, still waiting on that. Then we need to do a little work to the actual car too. run all of the harnesses where they need to go. There's a couple of heat shields and insulation panels that need to go up here before. Get the brake lines run where they need to go. So we'll get all of that stuff run before we actually drop the car down on top of this. So now what we're gonna do is probably push this out of the way and then lower the car down so we can start prepping the car. One of the first things I'm gonna do is remove this whole bumper assembly and spray some cavity wax on the inside of the frame rails. I should have done that already, but I'm gonna do it now before I forget. All right, so here's the cavity wax that I'm gonna be using. 3M Cavity Wax Plus, good stuff. And I got the wand kit. It comes with 3 different lengths applicator wands, and they have a little tip like that, so the wax will spray out to the sides on 2 of them. On this one, it just has a straight shot. So I'm gonna start with this longest one, and we're gonna go into the frame rail, past, there's a little bracket here, and you'll see once I turn the GoPro on, and go as far as we can go, and then pull it out while we're spraying. So you need to shake this for 1 minute. So there's another one of these brackets behind this one, about a foot or 2 back. And I think I've actually got it going through the hole in the first one and in the second one. So that is good. Okay, now we'll see how this tip actually sprays. Pretty good. So now I'll just go around and try and hit it from a couple different areas. We'll do inside here as well. So now it says you want to invert the can and then spray it. So I'm gonna try and do that through this. So maybe I can reuse this tip again, just into my trash can. Yeah, I think that cleared out. I could probably reuse this. All right, now I'm gonna start running everything here on the passenger side. I'm just gonna try and wash this off a little bit. Let's just do some soapy water. Look at that, a label, power steering. There were a couple more labels on here, but they've fallen off now. This thing's been sitting outside in the rain, covered, but still. So I was just about to start kind of rebuilding this area here, and this piece is actually broken. I don't know if I want to try and go pick up this stuff from a pick apart, or I don't know. All right, so I'm gonna plastic weld this piece. I've got the piece, so I'm just gonna plastic weld it. So I'm just gonna wash it first, and then I'm gonna create a bevel on both pieces, and then I'll clamp it together, and then throw a few staples into it, and then I'll plastic weld it from this side. And on this side, I'll create a bevel using the plastic welder and then plastic weld on top of that. Back side, front side, that's really strong. Now I'll just continue putting everything back in the engine bay and running everything I need to in here. that stuff that I just did. We've got one AC line, the other one is still connected to the car. We've got our 2 heater hoses going to the heater core, all mounted up here. This module here, and then everything over in this area. This whole area down here has all of the electronics run how it should. All of this stuff is run. There is one insulation panel that goes here, and then I think a heat shield over in this area. And then I think we're pretty much ready to drop this thing on top of the engine. So I'm gonna install the steering shaft now, at least up at the firewall at the bottom of the steering column. And I just wanna clean it up really quick first. All right, there's the steering shaft all cleaned up. So now let's pop it in. It's just got one retaining bolt. There it is. I'm just gonna clean this firewall up a little bit. So there's what it looks like before. All right, and here is after. Just a quick cleanup to match the rest of the car. All right, now I've got a lot of these little plugs, and what these are for are all these little holes like this one here, some of these in the wheel well, a lot of these on the outer frame rail. So I'm gonna go around and fill up all these holes with those little plugs. Just like this. Pop these plugs in. All right, I think I'm all done here in the engine bay. Pretty much got everything where it needs to go, as much as I need to be able to set this thing on top of the engine and mount the engine up to it, subframe, tranny, all that stuff. I'm gonna jump back over onto the engine, subframe, drivetrain assembly, and we're going to do the valve cover, which I got over there. It's the L-ring clinger. And I also got some new Bilsteins to install for the struts. So we're gonna replace the struts with some Bilsteins, do the valve cover, and then I think we're ready to install this thing. So first, I'll just jump on the valve cover to get this thing all finished up. We'll put the wiring harness, vacuum lines, all of that stuff back to where it goes. So the engine will be done, and then we'll swap the struts really quick and put this thing in the car. I think since this thing hasn't been started in a while, I'm gonna put a little bit of oil here in the valve train. Just gonna use some 530. I think this engine calls for 030 or 040 and 530 or 540, but a little bit of this 530 will be fine. Now, put the valve cover on dry. All right guys, here is the torque sequence. And I may put a different picture up, and it is 8.5 Newton meters. All right, now we'll do the gasket for the Valvetronic motor. So that just slides over the top like that. We've got a couple more things to transfer over. There are these little nubs that I think are for the engine cover. We need to bring those over. And some of these bolts we'll just put where we've got them. They're for different things that are gonna go on the engine. So let's pull all this stuff off. And then we've got a vacuum plug and a vacuum line. Go here, that connects down to there, and then the vacuum plug. Now I'll just continue putting everything back on the valve cover, like the fuel lines, vacuum hoses, and any connectors and harnesses that run up here. And all of the connectors and harnesses that run up here on the front of the engine. I'm gonna pull this water pump now. There we go. So I'm also gonna pull this. It's some sort of boost controller. or something like that. So I want to pull it out, see if I can fix it. If not, then we'll replace it. So there it is. All right, I'm going to work on removing the struts. First, I'm going to compress the spring and take the strut mount off. It'll just be easier mounted to this. So let's compress the spring. Got our spring compressor here. So let's do one here, one there. Okay, now this should, whoa, a little bit of tension, huh? Check that out. I'm gonna pack some grease into here. I don't know if that's supposed to come off, but while I've got it off, I'm gonna pack some grease. And we'll just do this one at a time. So we'll leave the spring compressor on this. There we go. Okay. Now we could go back on with the lower spring bucket pad insulator. Bump stop. Now we'll pop this back on. Put the nut on. Boom, one side done. And just like that, we now have the driver's side replaced as well. So we've got new struts on the driver and the passenger side. So I just pulled the transmission mount. This is the whole mount. There's two actual rubber mounts on it. And I'm gonna mount it to the tranny first. And then once we set the car down on top, we can bolt this part to the car. Here are the new mounts. It can only go on one way. That's good. All right, let's see if we can get the engine and tranny back over here. All right, here we're up under the car. We've got the tranny mount right there. Bolt holes almost lined up perfectly. I'm gonna see if I can get these started. Oh yeah, there we go. All right, now I'll just go do the other side, same thing. Okay, both struts in the strut towers. Subframe almost. Hey, this one is started. I think everything on this side is ready to go. Oh yeah, look at that, she's lined up perfectly. I need to jack up the back of the subframe to get this last bolt in, on this side anyway. Okay, these are all in. There it is. Yes. Oh yeah. Yeah. Woo. All of them are started. All right, guys, ready? Yes. She's in! All right, now let's just hit these tranny mounts. I still need to tighten the actual mount, but let's at least get these tight. There it is. All right, guys, that's gonna do it for today's video. As you just saw, we got the engine, subframe, and tranny completely mounted in this car. Everything mounted up perfectly, including all 6 subframe bolts and the top of the struts. We do still have quite a bit of work left reattaching and hooking everything back up, but I am super pumped that we hit this milestone because this project has been pretty much 2 years in the making. It's been sitting out in my storage, so I haven't been working on it, but it has always been in the back of my mind. And if you are here watching this outro, you are probably one of my subscribers or normal viewers, so I do want to say a special thanks to you. And if not, maybe it's time to hit that subscribe button because I do have some cool stuff coming up on the channel that you don't want to miss. And if you're enjoying the Frame Damage F30 content, definitely let me know by hitting that like button or leaving me a comment down below, and I'll see you all in the next video.